It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. President Park Geun-hye has a packed schedule ahead, first in Washington to take part in the Nuclear Security Summit 2016, focusing on preventing terrorism. Next, Mexico for another summit meeting. North Korea sentences an American student to 15 years of hard labor for crimes against the state. Experts view the move as a tried and tested strategy to draw high-profile visitors from the U.S. In the race for the White House, it's looking more and more like it will go down to Clinton versus Trump, with the Top Guns winning pivotal primaries on Tuesday. First, let's begin here in Korea. President Park Geun-hye will travel to Washington later this month to attend the fourth and final Nuclear Security Summit, where she'll seek to shore up international support on reining in North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Then she will fly down to Mexico for talks on boosting cooperation between the two countries. Song Ji-sun starts us off with the president's diplomatic itinerary.
This year's Nuclear Security Summit will be held back in its home city of Washington, where U.S. President Barack Obama hosted the first such event in 2010, with the goal of preventing nuclear terrorism around the world. More than 50 world leaders and the heads of international organizations like the UN and the International Atomic Energy Agency will be present to discuss countermeasures against the threat of nuclear terrorism and adopt a joint communique. On the sidelines of the summit, President Park is also slated to hold a handful of summit talks. This may also include trilateral talks with U.S. President Barack Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, where North Korea's nuclear issues are likely to dominate discussions. President Park will then fly to Mexico City for summit talks with her Mexican counterpart, Enrique Peña Nieto. The two countries will agree upon ways to enhance cooperation in various sectors ranging from ICT to security and education. In both cities, President Park will see greater cooperation on implementing the sanctions on North Korea after its recent threat of a fifth nuclear test. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
The reclusive state has sentenced a detained American to 15 years of hard labor. But given the North's history of using detained Americans to bring in high-profile figures, this seems to be another bid for attention. Connie Kim fills us in.
North Korea has sentenced another American. China's official Xinhua news agency reported Wednesday, Otto Warmbier has been sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for crimes against the state. Xinhua said North Korea's Supreme Court handed down the sentence to the 21-year-old student from University of Virginia, who was accused of stealing a propaganda banner from Yanggakdo International Hotel. Warmbier had entered North Korea as a tourist in late December, but was arrested on January 2nd while trying to leave. He confessed to the crime in an emotional press conference last month. His claims have not been verified, and other people detained in North Korea have been known to have retracted their confessions after their release.
I regret my actions more than anything. I apologize to both the Korean people and the government. I beg for forgiveness, and I beg for help in any way possible to save my life.
News of the sentence came as veteran U.S. diplomat Bill Richardson was meeting with North Korean officials at the UN headquarters in New York on Tuesday to push for Warmbier's release. Detaining and jailing U.S. citizens have been North Korea's way of drawing high-profile visits, including one by former U.S. President Bill Clinton. Warmbier is one of 3 Americans currently detained in the North. However, his imprisonment comes just after heavy UN sanctions were imposed on the North following its nuclear and ballistic missile tests. Pyongyang could see Warmbier's detention as a valuable political tool for ratcheting up tensions amid its threats of another nuclear provocation. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A 2.2 magnitude artificial earthquake shook up the North Korean capital of Pyongyang at around 12:30 p.m. today local time. Seoul's meteorological agency says it picked up the tremors in an area roughly 34 kilometers southeast of the capital. Officials add it's unlikely to have resulted from a nuclear test, judging by the location and magnitude of the seismic event. According to the weather agency, the depth of the seismic center was just 1 kilometer below ground. Turning to the local political arena, with the general election less than 1 month away, the ruling Saenuri Party is at risk for a potential rift within its ranks as it wraps up its candidate nomination process. Shin Se-min has this report.
A potential internal rift is looming over the ruling Saenuri Party as it wraps up its candidate nomination list ahead of the general election in April. The party announced 11 nominations on Tuesday, but still has yet to decide the fates of several prominent figures, including political heavyweight Yoo Sung-min, a 3-term lawmaker, and once a key ally of President Park Geun-hye. President Park and Yoo had clashed last year after the president called him out for practicing a politics of betrayal following an address made by then floor leader Yoo. In a speech to the full assembly in April, Yoo said the Park administration's promise to expand social welfare without raising taxes is unrealistic. Lawmakers loyal to President Park claim that this, along with other comments made by Yoo, indicate that he and his associate lawmakers have a different identity and political beliefs from the ruling party. But excluding Yoo from the nomination won't be easy, as it could jeopardize the party's chances in the April's election in the capital region. In a move to freshen up the image, the party has already cleared its ranks of sitting lawmakers, including 7 of a dozen non-Park faction members who are seeking for re-election. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Hours probably feels like minutes for politicians involved in the upcoming elections. Koreans will be heading to the polls for the general elections soon, and we are seeing rapid shifts in political maneuvering. By gaining a new member, the minor opposition People's Party now has the ability to form a parliamentary negotiation bloc with 20 lawmakers. Representative Jung Ho-jun is the latest addition. He defected from the main opposition Minju Party of Korea just yesterday. Jung said he left because the party did not nominate him to compete in the general election on April 13th. Also today, People's Party co-leader Chun Jung-bae promised to prevent the ruling Saenuri Party from gaining a majority in the parliament. He and senior party member Kim Han-gil have been advocating for a merger with the main opposition, but continued to wrestle with party co-founder An Cheol-soo over the decision. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have taken significant steps towards securing their respective parties' nominations after winning primaries in several key states. There were 5 races on the so-called Mini Super Tuesday in America. Clinton won 4, while Trump grabbed 3, with both Missouri results still to be confirmed. Trump won big on Florida, beating Senator Marco Rubio, who had been banking on a win in his home state. But unable to shake off his disappointments, Rubio has now suspended his campaign. Governor John Kasich cruised to his first primary win in his home state of Ohio. Although Clinton and Trump are currently ahead in their respective races, they are still far from having enough delegates to win their nominations outright before the national conventions in July. It could be a few years, maybe decades, before some of our daily routines like driving are handled by artificial intelligence. While it is arguably the most important advancements for our future, it's still uncharted territory that raises concerns. According to our Kim Ji-yeon, there's a real need to develop a legal mechanism around AI in its early stages.
DeepMind, which developed Hadoop or Go playing computer program AlphaGo, started with 3 young men in Britain in 2010. 4 years later, the startup developed artificial intelligence and then instantly became billionaires after DeepMind was acquired by Google.
The startup environment was one of the best anywhere in the world, as creative ideas and various technologies lead to new jobs for young people.
DeepMind's AI, equipped with advanced arithmetic and big data analytics skills, is widely expected to offer far-reaching benefits. Its application in the real world is ongoing, particularly in the development of self-driving cars, medical treatment, and dealing with stock market risks. It's also expected to solve more complicated social dilemmas. That's why AI is being referred to as a 4th industrial revolution by IT experts.
I think there will be a fight for data among industries in the future. The firms with data and a way of creating a new service or solution through AI will be on top.
But the real-life adoption of this type of technology not only raises ethical questions, but legal ones as well. For instance, if a self-driving car causes a traffic accident or if a super intelligent machine gives a wrong diagnosis, who would be held responsible?
These types of concerns show there's a need to set guidelines and license systems before AI systems go fully mainstream.
The Korea-based KT Economic Research Institute says the country's AI-related market volume will steadily increase to surpass $23 billion by 2030. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
Korea's youth unemployment rate reached a record high in February, although the government is pointing to some unusual factors unique to last month. It won't be easy to stamp out concerns about a sluggish job market amid feeble recovery momentum. For details, let's turn to Hwang Ji-hye.
Here at this university in Seoul, if you ask students what they want to do after graduation, you pretty much get the same answer across the board.
I'm trying to take the exam to become a patent attorney after I graduate.
I'm still a sophomore in college, so I haven't been specifically thinking about which state-run exam I'll take, but I'm discussing about it with my seniors.
This trend of young people looking for workplaces with job security, the government says, is what sharply raised unemployment figures last month. While exam applicants are classified as part of the economically inactive population before they take the test, they automatically become job seekers afterward.
There was the civil service entrance exam, and the number of applicants rose by 32,000 this year compared to a year ago. Among them, 24,000 are in their 20s, and that pushed up the youth jobless rate by half a percentage point.
The government also points to some temporary and seasonal factors like the effect of winter, which usually puts a damper on the job market. Experts say, however, the jobs figures this month actually give a clearer picture of what the numbers might have excluded.
Comparing the data of the first 2 months of this year with those of last year or a year before that, I think it's right to say job conditions worsened due to slumping economic conditions.
Facing numbers that continue to reflect the sluggish job market conditions for Korea's younger generation, the government plans to lay out a fresh and comprehensive set of measures to tackle the issue next month. Experts say such measures should include drastic reforms that close the gap between temporary and regular workers, as well as small and mid-sized firms and large companies. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Korea is apparently number one in Asia when it comes to the percentage of income held by the top 10% of earners. The country's income gap, however, is not as pronounced as that of other countries in the region. Kim Min-ji shares with us the results of a new IMF report.
Korea's highest paid people earn almost half of the nation's total income. According to the IMF, the top 10% of earners held 45% of the nation's income as of 2013, putting Korea at the top of the list among Asian countries. The number has been moving steadily upward from the 29% recorded in 1995. It's a significant jump considering that other Asian countries saw their shares rise between 1% and 2% on average during the same period. Singapore ranks second with 42%, followed by Japan and New Zealand. But on a brighter note, Korea's Gini coefficient, which measures inequality in terms of income gap, was relatively lower than that of its Asian counterparts. In 1990, the figure stood at 32, and by 2013, it had edged down slightly to 31. Although it's not a big drop, what's noteworthy is that the corresponding figure for China jumped from 33 to 53 during the same period, while Indonesia's went from 45 to 51. The IMF noted that in Korea there has been less movement between social classes due to the rapidly aging population and the sizable wage gap between regular and temporary workers, as well as gender discrimination in the workplace. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Turning our sights to China now, the National People's Congress ended with a closing ceremony in Beijing with much of the focus on Premier Li Keqiang's optimistic prospects for the Chinese economy. Lee Ji-won tells us more.
Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said China will not suffer a hard landing as long as it continues to reform and open up. At the annual press conference after the closing session of the 12th National People's Congress on Wednesday, Premier Lee showed confidence in the Chinese economy, saying that it would be impossible for the country to miss its growth target of 6.5 to 7%. Although he acknowledged a skepticism about the claim, making reference to the risk posed by the Chinese market, Premier Lee said that the world's second-largest economy is still full of possibility and there is more opportunity overall. In his plans to invigorate the economy, he said the country would try to make it easier for entrepreneurs to start businesses by improving financial regulations and promoting market-oriented reforms. He also talked about scaling back on government influence and ensuring fair competition. To the rising debt problem and the fluctuating stock markets, he said that the country has the ability to manage such financial difficulties with large reserves at financial institutions and a high savings rate.
The stock, bond, and the currency market are all market entities, so we will continue to pursue market-oriented reforms and establish a sound legal framework for the operation of these markets. The government has a regulatory obligation and still needs to improve our regulatory system, first of all by extending regulatory coverage to all financial products.
He added that he will continue to reform the market and strengthen the rule of law to improve the country's financial markets. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
We have come to the end of our newscast for this hour. As always, thank you for watching.